It's playoff time, baby.
Welcome to another episode of the Virtual Ball Boys podcast. My name is Chris, and I'm joined once again by my good friend Matt.
I have decided I will write the new Star Wars.
Okay, so what's up? How you do it?
Okay, so episodes 10, 11, and 12, that's the next ones, right? So they're going to be released in reverse order.
Okay.
Kind of like Memento style filmmaking, where you get the ending of the series.
Yeah.
And then you get the a little backstory for that, and then some backstory before that.
Could you go like full Memento, where it's like you go back and forth between the start and the end, and like then you just kind of work your way into the middle? Like that's how.
See, that would be a little harder, just because it would be like you'd have to release like part of 12 and then part of 10 and then part of 11. Where I think it would just be a little bit easier to just do 12, 11, 10.
Okay, I see what you mean. So like it's gonna play out. It's gonna play out like it's like the start of the end, and then you see the ending in the very first episode that we see, and then it's the beginning. We end like right before the middle. Essentially.
Yes.
Welcome everyone to the Virtual Ball Boys podcast.
And to please as many people as possible, it's gonna star Baby Yoda.
Sure. you had to go on the analytics on that front. Welcome everyone. It is now playoff time. With the wild card round is officially here. It is really we're now all in. We're really excited to see what ends up happening from here on out. We've had a long regular season, but this looks like it's going to be a great playoff race with a lot of great matchups. I think every single game, I think from here on out is good. I don't think I see a dud right now. You never know, but it's going to be really interesting, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first thing that we want to touch upon, there's a lot of news that happened over the course of the last few days. A lot of changes within the organizations that did not make the playoffs. And I think it's worth starting on the team that many people thought was going to do a lot better than they did. And that was the Cleveland Browns, where they hired in the offseason Freddie Kitchens. They felt like he would be the guy that after being recommended by Baker Mayfield to take the head coaching position, was very much liked by Mayfield. Felt like that could be a good thing for his growth and the good thing for the growth of the organization to have someone in-house that they hire, even though he did not have the the head coaching experience. And they got so much talent. They loaded up on all this talent in the off season, and a lot of people thought they would be at least playoff bound. They would go on to go 6-10, doing even worse than last year, despite the fact that arguably their talent was much better this year than it was last year. And it has resulted in Kitchens being one and done. He is no longer the head coach of the Browns, and on top of that, the guy that brought in all that talent, John Dorsey, has also, I guess more so, they mutually agreed to part ways after he refused to take a more smaller role in the front office management. So, what do you think about all this, Mr. Matt?
It's amazing that we started this year with such high hopes for the Browns, and by the end of the year, they're the exact same Browns team that we've come to know from the 2 decades now that they've been in existence.
Mm.
I was hopeful, Cleveland, that you had something Everyone was, and then this team is cursed, Chris.
Yeah, it is.
It is, and it's unfortunate, but I don't know what needs to be done in order to get this organization on track. But this head coaching search, and now I guess GM search, is going to be kind of big, kind of important.
Yeah, they've not had a winning season in this decade. They have
Nope.
gone the decade without winning record, and they are now they basically they're focusing on the head coaching search, and then they're gonna probably hire a general manager uh, based off of their head coaching search and based on who they find. Uh, and they might do a situation like they have with New England, where the head coach is the one that's in charge of personnel. Like, just go on full in on the head coach. Like, that's the leader of the organization, leader on the field and off in terms of personnel evaluation and all that. There, but it is surreal. It is surreal to kind of think about when you look about at the Browns. It was like they had it all. It felt like, going into the season, it felt like a team just destined to do so well, and we walk away from it. No head coach, no GM. We question if Baker Mayfield's going to be a feature. We question about a lot of things on the roster, from the offensive line to some things on defense. What's the future for Myles Garrett? Is he even going to be back week 1 after his ridiculous thing that he did? Will he be suspended even more? Who knows? This is a situation that has grown toxic, and it is the same old Browns, and it's upsetting for Browns fans. And I'm sure a lot of people want the Haslams to just sell the team and look for something new.
Yeah.
Because that's where we're at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
The other big firing that happened this week, the New York Giants have parted ways with Pat Shurmur after a few years at the helm.
Since this is your team, I really want your just like personal opinion on this one.
Yeah. Well, so they parted ways, and they're gonna keep Dave Gettleman, who's been the general manager for now as well for a few years, as well. I really did not have a huge issue with Shurmur. But I also felt like since the beginning, since the moment he was hired, I didn't think it was gonna last. Not that he's a terrible coach or anything. I just think that he doesn't. I don't think that he's fit to be a head coach. I think that he has been an offensive coordinator and has had a lot of success on that front. He has not really needed to be, take on the next step. I know he probably wants to, but it's not feasible with him. And the 9-23 record kind of reflects that. But I think also what is a reflection on the Giants is the fact that they have not done a good job planning for the future. They have not done a good job with who they've drafted. They have not done a good job with, really building necessary talent on this team. And Saquon Barkley could definitely do well for this team, and so can Daniel Jones. And that's something that Dave Gettleman could be given credit to. But there is, as much as he tries to put into the offensive line, which they haven't really done a ton, but that is still an issue for this team. And then there is one side of the football that has been completely and utterly just abysmal this year, and that was the defense from front to back. Like, it's not good, and they need to do something about that. Why I was hoping they would get Chase Young. I don't think that's going to happen now. But this is something something drastic needs to happen in order for this team to get the necessary talent in order to compete, and I just don't see it happening with the roster as it stands right now.
They need to do more, I think in free agents especially, because if they whether or not they draft well, which they haven't really drafted well, and I think that past couple years with Saquon and Daniel Jones will be fine, and Saquon's going to be great, but you can't just rely on the players you get from that. And free
Mm-hmm.
agent signings like Golden Tate are
Yeah.
not the level of talent that you need to bring this team to a level that you want it to be.
Yeah. Like I think they expect to win next year, but they need to sign people, and but it's also why I think a lot of Giants fans are frustrated at the moment. Like I'm willing to give Dave Gilman another year, but I've been frustrated with him, since back when he was like trying to put Eli Manning on a pedestal for whatever reason and keep him as the starter, even though we knew that he was going to be benched, so we needed a new guy. And why it was, I would still stand by the fact that like I understand that I understand now that the toxicity of the situation was not going to be resolved, and that it was best for all sides to part ways. But I really wonder how different things would be if they could have resolved something with Odell Beckham. And I know Odell did not have a great year, but a lot of that was because Baker didn't have a good year,
and Baker didn't have a good year.
Right, and it was a mix of a lot of different things for him. So, I really wonder, and I hope that the personnel that around Dave Gettleman, maybe he could try new people on that front, and just if you really want this team to compete and win next year, you have to really build the talent around Jones, and you have to protect him, and you need to get people that can go after the other team, because again, down the stretch, it was just abysmal all around. And I don't like this idea that we're going to franchise tag Leonard Williams. He's a fine player, but he's not an amazing player. Either extend him for whatever money whatever money that you think is feasible, or just get rid of him, because he's not a franchise defensive lineman. So there's a lot of issues, but we can move on. It's just the Giants. It is all a wait and see, and I'm hoping they can find someone. I want someone with experience. I want a head coach that has done it before. Why I wanted Ron Rivera, which is, speaking of which,
let's talk about the Washington football team.
Yes.
They fired their coach very early in the year. Jay Gruden was let go. So they kind of have had a little bit of a head start of sorts in terms of head coach changes. But they were also the first ones to get a coach for next year.
Right.
And they chose Ron Rivera, who I knew as soon as Ron Rivera was let go, I knew that he was going to get a head coaching position somewhere, just because of how well he's talked about as a coach. And I'm just a little disappointed that it's Washington, because I don't like Washington as an organization.
Well, I think it's toxic. It's a toxic Redskins team that, with Ron Rivera, it's like I feel like Ron Rivera is not really that toxic. He seems like a nice guy, and I'm just a little surprised that he chose to go down that route. Maybe
the letting go of Bryce or Bruce Allen had something to do with that. Bruce Allen, the head of football operations or something, president.
Yeah, so Bruce Allen, this has been something that has been going on for years. That it was almost like a frequent chant that the Washington fans have been waiting for. They've been wanting Bruce Allen to go, and there's been horror stories being told behind the scenes about how Bruce Allen runs the organization. It's not pretty, and he's not. It's very much like his way or the highway. He's not a good personality, and just not was not someone that was well liked in or out. And Dan Schneider, I think the only reason why he kept him around was because he has the hierarchy, or the what do you want to call it, the family tree, I guess.
Yeah.
With him, like his father, George Allen, was a Pro Football Hall of Famer. So and I think that there is kind of like something that to hold on to, like, this is. Football is, that he has football in his blood, so we're gonna keep him around because that's gonna work out. No, it didn't work out.
No,
and
didn't work out.
Yeah, and so ultimately he got fired, and now the question is like Ron Rivera's gonna come in. Who is he gonna have as like who's he gonna report to? Will he be able to bring someone that he likes with
Yeah,
him? Or is it gonna be?
which he did, I think, pretty well, getting Jack Del Rio as defensive coordinator.
I saw
I
I
like
did
that.
see something like that.
I
I
like
didn't know
that. I
that was
like
gonna
that
happen.
pairing a lot.
Yeah,
And I think that it is a strong pair that can help bolster a team that has been the like scraping the bottom of the barrel for so long.
yeah, it's a good defense. It has been like there's a lot of
Mm.
talent there. Uh, Big question though is just the GM who's going to be the offensive coordinator. Like
Yep.
who's going to be the one to groom Dwayne Haskins? Is this someone that could be a franchise player for the team? So I've as much as I'm disappointed that Rivera went down that path, maybe he could turn that organization into something good. I don't know.
Yep.
You kind of root for him on
It
that
won't
front,
be until they change the name, but at least
of
like
course.
you won't have to like sell your tickets for $3.
Yeah, absolutely. Other news items. The Cowboys. So just to be clear, we're recording this on Wednesday. I think I'm still gonna end up putting this out on Friday. Um, or I don't know. I might do it Thursday. I have to see
Yeah.
what kind of the timeline here. But it's as of this moment right now, Jason Garrett still has a job. That's supposedly not going to be the case for too much longer. So I guess my question is, what is taking so long? Why is it that Jerry Jones wants to drag this out?
Because
Could
Jerry Jones is an idiot who doesn't know how to run a football organization.
well, I also think that I think that he's into the dramatics, and I think the whole
Yeah.
situation is he wants to drag it out for as long as possible to see if things could could maybe like he's gonna do all this, he's gonna drag it out just to be like so that way people are constantly talking about like, oh, why is he not gonna let go of Jason Garrett yet, and so
Yep.
what he's kind of like thrust the organization into the conversation. In the case though that Jason Garrett gets fired, which we think is going to happen, who would you think would be like, because I fully expect it to be a clown show in many ways, whether for the good or the bad. But it's gonna be like he's gonna pull in candidates that like we would never expect. Like it is the Cowboy situation is gonna be the one that I think any coach would want to take on.
Yeah.
Who's like that person that you think could just all of a sudden just come in and like just shock the world, like, oh my
Bill
god,
Belichick.
oh my god.
No, absolutely not. Um, I don't know. I think that especially like from an offensive standpoint, like Eric Bellamy and Greg Roman would be um, too highly sought after, and they're
Hmm.
definitely highly sought after anyways for the open ones.
Sure.
Uh, but I think that is going to be very appealing to work with Dak and Zeke and Amari, even though there's a good chance that Amari won't be on the team, and Dak might not either within a couple of years because they haven't got new contracts yet, and they paid out the ass for Zeke.
Right. And I mean they're gonna probably try to sign Dak. I don't think that Amari though is gonna be paid, just considering the fact that he was a little bit disappearing here and there near down the stretch.
Yep.
It definitely, those candidates make sense because I think those are people that are definitely candidates. I was thinking like Urban Meyer, like someone like they're gonna do try to coax like a crazy like college coach like to end up taking over the organization, like Lincoln Riley, or they could imagine that they pull like Nick Saban out of Alabama. Like I feel like they're gonna do something absolutely ridiculous because that's the Cowboy way. It just feels like to try to win
Do
a
something
championship.
ridiculous, and then when it doesn't work out, be extremely stubborn about it.
Oh yeah, well, and that's kind of like it'll probably be another decade before our next Cowboys head coaching search at the
Yeah.
very least, because they just hold on for dear life.
There's like the Steelers in terms of holding on to their head coach, where their head coaches have been really good. and they just stick with them for a really long time. Like Tomlin's been the coach for a really long time for the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Cowboy way, which is not making good decisions and being stubborn about it when the thing that your head coach is known most for is clapping.
Yeah, it's we'll see how that all ends up playing out for them. Jaguars are keeping their head coach.
I'm actually
general
surprised
manager.
about that, just because of how like especially with the NFLPA heavy criticism and was it a lawsuit?
Not necessarily a lawsuit. It was more of like
Indictment.
It was like findings that the NFLPA they found that the Jaguars were just not a well-run organization.
Yeah.
So under Tom Coughlin.
Right. So I was kind of like expecting them to go, like just the organization, the ownership to be like, all right, let's start over. But
Yeah.
Shad Khan decided not to do that.
I mean, I think that what's happening is that Tom Coughlin, was. I think people looked at him as like the root of all evil when it came to the Jaguars and maybe their issues. And a lot of players from Jacksonville kind of come out and said, we don't like him. We don't like what he's done. Jalen Ramsey, famously, of course, not a big fan of Coughlin.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they just think that Doug Marrone led this team to an AFC Championship game, and Dave Caldwell was one of the main reasons why the talent was there to go to the AFC Championship game back in 2016. Maybe they just think, this core, let's see what happens when we don't have someone idiotically running our organization like on that front. It looks like Shad Khan and Tony Khan are going to be two, will be basically who is being reported to. Like the owners are going to be more invested in their team this year and not have Tom Coughlin running the show. So maybe that causes change. Who freaking knows? That's the Jaguars. I think that really covers it. The Falcons ended up keeping Dan Quinn after it felt like
the
weeks and weeks
Bears,
that they were not good.
The Bears got rid of like their entire offensive coaching staff.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
which is kind of a big deal, but not head coach level.
Yeah, no, Mark Helfrich was the biggest name. I think that was fired there.
Yep.
I think like the Lions got rid of their special teams coordinator, and like there's coaching changes, definitely on like the, on the coordinator front and stuff, but no one else on the head coaching front. Which means if we do include the Cowboys in this, because again we're not too sure about what's happening at that moment. That the head coach, we only have 5 head coaching changes, which is kind of surprising because it's
very surprising.
We've had for at least the last decade, we've had at least like 6 coaches let go every single year at the minimum. So just not a lot of turnover.
Past few, it's felt like 8.
Oh no,
like a quarter of the league.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's been even bigger than that. Yeah, so is definitely we're at a bigger level right now. In terms of or rather a smaller level of terms of the head coaching changes. But hey, I sometimes maybe not a ton of change is good if you feel like you're on the right path, and to a lot of these organizations they feel like they are. So we'll keep you all posted on that. We'll talk more about it next week. Yes, so with the conclusion of the regular season, that means our pick competition has come to an end. And after the last week, I believe we had 4 disagreements going in.
Yep.
Yeah, so I got 3 of those correct.
Yep.
And so finished off 11-5, and for how many weeks was it for 9-7?
This was the fourth in a row that I finished 9-7.
Yeah, and so that that I ended up getting 6 more points. You got 1 point. You lost your team. I got my team chaos, so I didn't lose the guarantee, but you didn't get yours, so you got -1 for that. So you got 1 point for the week. And so the final standings, I finished with a 155 to 100. picking record, -3 qualifier, and finishing off with 52 points. And Matt, 150, 105, -5 qualifier, and 40 points. But it was close to the end, and
Yep.
it was well fought all around. You did much better in the guarantees this year than I did, 10-7 overall. I had a losing record with my guarantees, 89.
Wow.
Team Chaos, I ended up going 6-11 when it was all said and done. You ended up going 2-15 on the Team
Which
Chaos.
Is weird because usually I'm really good with chaos.
Yeah, it was week 9 and 10, and then nothing else.
Yeah.
In terms of the Chaos front. In terms of picks per teams, I sorted things out, and I have the teams that we each did better in. I'll start with you, Matt.
Okay.
You did better with the Saints, the Jaguars, the Titans, the Eagles, the Dolphins, the Browns, the Jets, and the Chargers.
Okay.
Do you have any specific record? Like, do you want to know a specific record for any of those
I want to
teams?
know the Titans.
11-5.
Okay, that is. You know what? I'm gonna count that as a victory just for the fact that it was the Titans.
It was I went
'Cause-
8-8. Like, that was actually
Yeah.
one of your bigger blowouts in terms of
Because
picks.
with how the Titans had been just historically with us,
Mm-hmm.
we can't predict them. And then I got faith in them, and then they started like doing things. So
yeah,
I'm happy about that.
yeah. It was really really good on that front. For me, it was and the Chargers, by the way, ended up being my worst. I went 6-10. You ended up going 8-8 with the Chargers. For the we'll actually get to you. Your best ended up being Baltimore, but we tied on that, so that's why I did not bring it up.
Gotcha.
13-3. For the rest, the Patriots, Redskins, Bengals, Rams, Steelers, Bills, Giants, Buccaneers, Cardinals, Vikings, Panthers, and Colts were my group. I think the one I'm most surprised about, I don't know. I guess, I don't know. I think the Rams were a little surprising to go 12-4 because I just felt like they were so all over the place. But maybe I had a good read on that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Colts ended up being your worst with you went 6-10 with the Colts. I went 8-8 on that one. I tied with the Ravens. I tied with the Patriots as well. Those were the two teams that I did the best on with a 13-3 record. And as for the ties, we basically across the board were equal on the Ravens, Chiefs, Lions, Bears, Broncos, Texans, Niners, Cowboys, Packers, Seahawks, Raiders, and Falcons. Is there any other team that you're curious about how you ended up doing?
Not really.
Yeah, 10-6 you went with the Bears.
Okay, that seems about right.
Yeah. I guess I'm very surprised. I think for me was the Chargers, just maybe because I had faith that the Chargers would maybe finally turn it around, and just never did. That's the only thing I could think about in terms of how bad I did there. But the only one that we both got a losing record on was the Falcons, 7-9.
Of course.
Falcons was that that was our collectively our worst, even though we had individually we had our own worst ones. So that's and how that all ended up playing out there. The Dead Rising segments that we did earlier in the year, the Titans were one of the teams that we resurrected, and they ended up making the playoffs.
They made the playoffs, yep.
And everyone else, the Raiders and the Cardinals did not make it. Those are the other two. But the rest of them, it was close. The Steelers almost made it, but all the teams that we killed were out of the playoffs.
That's good.
Yeah. Like we did really good on making sure that we had a good, that we knew
Early
which teams would
season
not make
grasp.
it.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Which teams were playoff bound and which ones weren't.
Yeah, and we have when we did the Dead Rising thing, we did end up putting some more teams in the grave, and all those teams were we were right about. So
Yep.
very good job all around. I forget. I have to double check. I think that we collectively didn't do. We were only like a little bit off of our records from last year for the regular season. But I think overall, we still did really well. We're getting them right, and that's what what matters.
I think
we're
my
doing
goal,
a lot of it.
my biggest goal for next year is to get under 100 misses.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both did it last year. I think.
Okay.
I think yeah.
In
Okay.
that case, I want to get to 160 correct picks.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, I'm all right. I actually have it up here. 156. Cool. You went 156.98 in the regular season last year, and I went 155.99 in the regular season last year.
Gotcha.
Some of that was also helped by the fact that there is 2 ties instead of just 1.
Yep.
Last year, so that kind of helped us get under the 100 losses. But even with that being said, like we did very well. And yes. It was a chaotic year, which it usually is. But, that's just kind of what happens with this. But, yeah, a lot of fun. Always is. And we're going to keep on doing our picks, but it's going to be separate from the competition aspect of it. I mean, it's going to be its own separate competition, I should say, as we go into the playoffs. The playoffs are here. It's interesting because usually you have like 1 or 2 rematches. Only 1 rematch from the regular season. Everything else, there is some sort of vengeance aspect of these games, and we're going to start off with Bills at Texans. Get us started on this one.
So Bills at Texans. Texans are the division winner of the AFC South. The Bills are one of the wildcard teams. Bills have had a pretty up year compared to what they're usually used to, and have kind of played toe to toe with a lot of the top teams, but have had instances where they've kind of faltered. Meanwhile, the Texans have been extremely strong in some scenarios and extremely weak in others. Specifically following this very strange win-win-loss pattern that could continue throughout to the postseason.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it will, not because of the pattern, but because I think the Texans are the better team here.
Yeah.
Bill O'Brien does not have a good playoff record. However, neither do the Bills.
Sure.
So, I think the Texans are gonna be able to take this one. I really like Deshaun Watson and the Texans' offense as a whole, and the defense will be able to do enough to stop the Bills.
Yeah, let's talk about the game a little bit because,
Sure.
at least for me, when I look at the Texans, they are at the bottom of the league in defensive metrics. They're 31st. Like I'm gonna in total, 31st or 32nd in total defense overall. Part of it was not having J.J. Watt, and he may come back for this game. In fact, I think he will. The big thing though with him is that he's coming off a torn pec injury, so that's something that he has to watch for. I mean, you do have some good players, like the linebacking core is pretty good. Whitney Merciless, continues to play pretty well. But overall, this team has struggled with really holding teams out of this in the red zone, especially. They've had trouble with keeping teams out of the end zone. But on the Bills side, it's kind of the opposite situation where you have a defense that has played very well, and a lot of it comes from the secondary. Tre'Davious White, the league's interception leader, and potentially will be on the All-Pro team. He's been one of the best corners in the league, and the secondary as a whole has done a good job shutting down receiving cores. Now, what do you think about the offenses in this matchup?
Okay, so the offenses, the Texans have a much more well-rounded one.
Sure.
Especially with Deshaun Watson at quarterback and DeAndre Hopkins as wide receiver, with the other wide receivers kind of stepping up whenever they need to, but not very consistently. With a couple good running backs and a offensive line that still isn't the strongest, but since adding Laramie Tunzel has gotten much better.
Absolutely.
Where Buffalo has Josh Allen, who is playing pretty well at quarterback, rookie running back in Devin Singletary, and some receivers who can catch balls from Josh Allen when needed. So I think Houston definitely has a better offense in this case, but
Sure.
but Buffalo's isn't bad.
No, it's and what helps with the Bills is that have been able to run. Josh Allen's been able to run the ball, and that's kind of helped things. Like he's been kind of the dual threat guy that they're able to use. What I'm concerned about with Buffalo is the lack of playoff experience is certainly a part of it. I mean they were there 2 years ago with
But they
Jacksonville.
scored 3 points on the Jaguars.
Yeah, that was of course with Tyrod Taylor. And that was without as good of a defense as they have had this year, and they kind of were accidentally in that situation. This is a lot different. This is this is only their second playoff appearance since 1999. It's kind of it's still surreal to think about that. So the lack of playoff experience is definitely a factor, and I do of course Josh Allen as good as he's played, you have a lot of questions on that front. And the Texans have played well, but it is weird. Like there is a pattern with them that they do well for 2 games and then they lose. They do well for another 2 games and then they lose. So it's constantly a topsy-turvy team that we just don't know how consistent they can be going into a matchup like this. So, you say you're sticking by the Texans right now.
I'm still staying with Houston. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll defer. I'll do the Bills. I think that
Okay.
I think Buffalo has. I've doubted Buffalo a lot in this season, and I think that I've really wanted to see this team. I would love them to move on to the next round. I think everyone has like the longest playoff winning drought. Which again, big reason was they haven't been into the playoffs since 1999, until 2016. But I think about this team, and I think about how well the defense has been playing. I think that I could see where the Texans could be a little rusty right now. They're a little beat up. They got some rest last week, but Will Fuller has been on and off with injuries, and Deshaun Watson's a little bit beat up. DeAndre Hopkins is a little beat up. There's too many injuries, and I just don't know if J.J. Watt. You don't usually come back with a torn pec for a season, and so
No.
I know he's a different animal, but I'm a little worried for him on that front. I don't know if it's going to come through. I think that Sean McDermott has done such an excellent job. I think he's going to pull through in this matchup.
Okay.
Next up,
It was close for me, but I trust Houston a little bit more.
No, I completely understand. Yeah. Next up, the Titans at the Patriots. Boy, oh boy, what is happening here? Last week, yeah, go ahead.
No, you can go.
Last week the Patriots had, they had an easy situation. Beat the Dolphins of all teams. Just take care of them, and you were into the divisional round.
Yeah.
And what happened was just an amazing Ryan Fitzpatrick moment that we'll remember long after his retirement, where he just puts the team on his back, and him and Devontae Parker just had a monster day.
What retirement?
Yeah. Will he ever retire? That's true.
Will he ever retire?
Yeah, but he's single-handedly carried this team throughout the entire season almost, with the exception of the few games that Josh Rosen started. And he really he demolished a defense that earlier in the year people were trying to put on the same level as the 85 Bears. And that notion has been squandered for a few weeks now, and it should be completely squandered now. Like Stephon Gilmore, like the best defensive player on the Patriots, got completely burned by Parker. It
Yeah.
was insane. It was an incredible performance.
A guy who, by all metrics, was considered a bust, an NFL bust,
Yeah,
before this year.
is the Patriots are at one of their lowest moments, and now they are forced to play in wild card weekend. Cannot even get healthy. Cannot even like rest, I should say. They now go to face a Titans team who got into the playoffs after beating the Texans soundly, of course, against backups, but they're able to play in this game, and Mike Vrabel's playing his former team. And the last time these two teams played, Titans blew out the Patriots last year. I mean, this is insane.
It's a wonderful matchup. Let's compare the offenses, shall we?
Yes.
So, the New England offense has been struggling to find an identity all year. Namely with, really with all of it. Brady can't find a number 2 receiver. And Edelman's been really consistent and really good. But without a number 2, the offense isn't what you expect Brady to have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird. It's the absence of Gronk is definitely a factor, but Gronk hasn't been like the most consistent here player the past few years either. So it's not anything new of Patriots don't have Gronkowski. It's Tom Brady not being able to find a rhythm. Maybe Chris Hogan was the answer and you let him walk. But
yeah.
Like you bring in Mohamed Sanu, doesn't work. Philip Dorsett at one point, doesn't work. Your rookie, N'Keal Harry, who was extremely touted, didn't work. Jacoby Myers, the other rookie, who kind of just came out of nowhere, hasn't been working. And then your run game isn't strong either. Michelle is not who he was in the postseason last year, which you thought he was going to be this year. James White is doing fine and can work as a receiver, but still not enough to get this offense moving. And then Brady's played the worst that he's played in a long time.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Tennessee, start of the year, like as unpredictable as you imagined Tennessee to be. And then they changed quarterbacks, and Ryan Tannehill is awesome.
Yeah.
Ryan Tannehill has been playing amazingly. Derrick Henry has been great, and then their rookie receiver AJ Brown has been lining up the league and has like, I think is like something like the first, maybe not the first, but he got to over 1,000 receiving yards in under like 80 catches or something like that.
Mm.
It was either 80 or 90, but like an absurdly low number. Just because all of his receptions are these long bomb passes.
Yeah, that's incredible.
It's weird saying this, but Tennessee's offense is by far and above better than New England's offense.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think there's a question at this point. The Titans offense much better. Derrick Henry too. I mean, it just
Derrick Henry was the rushing leader.
Yeah,
had the most rushing yards out of any other player.
It is insane. It is shocking to say the least. And when you look at the defenses, like that's the thing that I think that the Patriots are going to have to rely on in this. I think they were burned big time against the Dolphins, and it's a wild thing to even state. But they are still the more talented core, I think, on the Patriots team, and I still think that there is a potential where they could try to shut things down, because that's what Bill Belichick has done in the past, where even if the team has a really bad game, they're able to bounce back, and they have the secondary playing. Again, everything's good. Let's just say put everything in the context of, with the exception of last week's game, the secondary has played out of its mind, and they've absolutely shut down receivers as much as they can. And they do have a nice pass rush, but the big thing that they've had trouble with, the Patriots, is they haven't been able to stop the run. Like, they're able to get after the quarterback and maybe shut down the receivers, but they have not been able to stop the run, and that's going to be a huge struggle against Derrick Henry and this Titans team. But the problem is, for the Titans, their defense has not played that well. They their secondary has been beat up. Malcolm Butler has not, was injured in the middle of the season, has not been back. I believe is on IR actually. And they have not been at a level where they've been they've gone after the quarterback a little bit, but they have not done it consistently. And that's something that the Patriots are known for exposing on that front. So the Titans have been very much, the offense has been a huge and probably the main reason why that they've been able to win as many games, and the defense, which had been good for the Titans maybe earlier in the season, just has not been at that same level down the stretch. So I would be worried a little bit with the Titans on that front. But it's gonna be a close game. I don't think this is gonna be like a usual like Patriots first round of the playoffs blowout. I mean, obviously it's different because they're in the wild card weekend.
They're in the wild card round, not the divisional round.
Yeah, but I just think generally I think it's gonna be a super close game. I don't even want to say like if the Titans come in here, like I don't think they're gonna blow out the Patriots either. I think it's gonna be as close of a game as possible, and I think this is why I think this game in particular is the hardest for me to pick. What do you think?
This is by no means the hardest game for me to pick. I'm going Tennessee. Despite all of New England's like previous success and the good defense, the Titans have been on such a streak of success that I can't see New England's offense doing much in this game, doing enough to overcome what I believe the Titans can do. And I really trust Tannehill, and I really trust Derrick Henry, and that's weird to say, but I trust them more than Brady. Mm-hmm. And I trust the Titans team as a whole. I think they have more to play for than the Patriots do. So,
yeah,
that's a weird way to phrase that. I don't know what I was trying to say, but I don't want that like specific phrase like on record that I said
it. I think I really think the Titans are the better team in this game. I have to pick New England, and it's just for the fact...
But the thing is you don't.
No, I have to, because here's the thing. Every single time I pick against the Patriots, with the exception of the Chiefs game earlier this year, I almost always get it wrong. I was picking against them constantly last playoffs, and they were all the way to win the championship. And I can't do that again. I can't turn against this team.
I really hope this year you are like broken free of your curse.
Right. I feel this is it's all of our curse too. Yeah. It is the curse of having to deal with this team consistently, and I really think I do think in my heart of hearts I think the Titans can win this game and will win this game, but I have to pick the Patriots just because I can't turn against a team that they always are deceitful in their, and how they play in the regular season. They don't play well, and then all of a sudden things just turn on in January and they go on a run of a lifetime, and I'm just like, and it's so frustrating to watch every single year that they constantly do that, and I can't pick against that scenario happening because I've been burnt time and time and time again with this team. So I'm picking for the Patriots, and if I'm incorrect, well then I'll have to worry about picking the Patriots because they'll be out of the fucking playoffs and out of our lives. So there you go.
There we go.
It's that awesome Saturday slate. Let's turn to Sunday. Vikings Saints. What do you got?
Vikings Saints. We have New Orleans, who's trying hard to get that first round bye, but came up just short thanks to a Lions fuck up. But still a very strong team, and still ended the season very strong. They were without a quarterback for most of the season. Their starting quarterback, rather, because they had a quarterback because Teddy Bridgewater did an amazing job keeping the Saints winning games throughout the stretch. Where Minnesota, we just got in the playoffs a couple weeks ago. Really good record as well. I think they were 10-6.
They finished 10-6.
10-6, which is
they were
awesome.
yeah.
Great record, and just behind Seattle. Was Seattle 10-6 too?
Seattle was 10-6. Yeah, they got
Yeah.
the tiebreaker. I'm sorry. No, the Seahawks were 11-5. My apologies.
11-5. Okay, my bad. So still one game behind what a lot of people consider to be one of the best teams in the league.
Mm-hmm.
That just ended up where it was due to division circumstances.
Yeah.
So this is also a rematch of the Minneapolis Miracle from a couple seasons ago.
Indeed.
So I'm sure the Saints fans have a lot to say in that. It is, however, in New Orleans this time, not Minnesota. How do you think that's going to affect how this game turns out?
Oh, I mean, I think that there's, of course, that that thinking in the back of your head about how that all played out. Like, I think the Saints obviously will have some kind of behind, they'll have it kind of tucked away. Like, I think along with their if they make it to the NFC Championship game, they're going to talk about what happened last year against the Rams.
Yep.
I think the Saints fans are going to have to hold a grudge against the Vikings team, and it works out for them. The only thing is, one of the main people involved in the Minneapolis Miracle is not there. Case Keenum has been long gone from the Vikings the last few years. So now it's Kirk Cousins in the big spot, his second playoff appearance all time. For the Saints, I mean, man, this is going to be interesting. Just to turn the page to talking about the units from the defensive side, the Saints defense. I mean, I remember there was such a long stretch of this Saints defense being so bad in back at in 2015, 2016, and things just turned around for them, and they've played so well. Cameron Jordan's a beast. They're doing such a good job, and they're doing a good job against wide receivers in the secondary. Their problem is they're not playing well against tight ends, and Vikings do have that. So that's but that is literally the only concern I have about the Saints defense. They are doing really really well. And the Vikings team, they're pretty good too, and you don't want to discount that. They're able to really play well. It's a deep unit, and I think that certainly the pass rush could be better, but I think it's doing pretty well right now. Daniel Hunter is the star of this year for the Vikings. And I'm gonna forget his name, but there's someone in the secondary for the Vikings who's tied with Stephon Gilmore and Tre'Davious White in the interceptions. So that's
is that Xavier Rhodes or is that someone?
That's no, not Xavier Rhodes. It's someone that has not I apologize. I'm gonna look it up right now because I want to give them their due. But this is still the Vikings defense that we have. It's not as dominant as we've seen maybe its 2017 iteration, but they're still playing relatively well, and I don't think we should discount them in a matchup like this. I think that they could really. Not Harrison Smith. No. It's Anthony Harris. There you go. Yeah, he's very very under the radar, that guy. Much so that I forgot who he was. He's been with Minnesota for a few years and just hadn't really been a huge factor for them until last year. He played a little well, but he's played really well this year. And so he's just now he's getting he deserves a lot of credit for what he's done in the secondary. So I think it's going to be a game where you have two really good defenses battling it out to see who could do a better job shutting teams down.
Yep. And then you have the offenses, who are a little bit of a different story. In Minnesota, you have Kirk Cousins, who has had a good year, but there's still the stigma, and it keeps proving itself even when we think it isn't, of his ability to play in a national spotlight.
Yeah,
and this pressure is going to really be on him. You also have Dalvin Cook, who should be back from an injury.
Yes,
but again, if he is back, he still is recovering from an injury, so he may not be at 100%. He's been the focal point of this offense. But if he's not at 100%, that's going to be a problem. Thankfully, Mike Boone, the fantasy football savior of Week 17 championships,
Oh God.
is is a good enough backup. But Dalvin Cook is just so good that it makes a difference.
Of course.
You have receivers. Adam Thielen, who's been on and off all year, should be back. He's back. He's been back, right?
He was back in week 16. He took a rest with the rest of the stars in week 17, so he should be back for this game.
Yeah, so Thielen should be back. Diggs should be good. Where you have the two Minnesota receivers who are really good, but can Cousins do enough to support them? Is going to be the big question in this game. Absolutely. Meanwhile, on New Orleans' side, you have the all-time reception leader in a single season, in Michael Thomas. And you have the is Drew Brees still the passing touchdown leader, or did Brady pass him? Probably not.
New York Drew Brees is still in the lead on that front.
Okay, so you have the not that it matters this season, but Drew Brees, who has thrown the most passing touchdowns of all time, and then who was out early in the season due to an injury, now is back and is playing as you expect Drew Brees to play, and doesn't have the same end of season fatigue that he does because he hasn't been playing all season.
Right.
So you also have Alvin Kamara, who hasn't been doing a lot, but I kind of wonder if that's a product of trying to get Michael Thomas to the reception lead, or if Kamara's just not been as good. You have Jared Cook, who's been a really good tight end. You don't have many receivers beyond that. You also have Latavius Murray in the running game, who has shown up in a lot of good moments. So I think with how good the defenses can be against each other, I think the Saints just have the better offensive pieces.
I tend to agree, and I think that it's going to be really tough on the Vikings to really slow down them. I think it'll be tough. I think it's gonna be closer than some people think, but my pick is with the Saints. I believe in them too much. They should have been the team that has the bye, not the Packers, but that's just tiebreakers happen. Can't really do much about that. But I believe in the Saints. I think they take care of business in this matchup, and I really think that the defense is going to be what really is going to stand out even more so than the offense, because I think that they're going to be able to take advantage of the Vikings defense a little bit more than I think the Vikings offense will take advantage of I think the Saints offense will have a harder time really showing up with the Vikings defense playing as well as it is, but I think that the Saints defense will really shut down Vikings offense. I
absolutely agree with that.
I think that'll be the showcase on that front.
I have to go Saints too. I'm so high on this team, and I think that Drew Brees is hungry for that other Super Bowl reign before he retires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. This is like, if I had to pick a team that I think will go all the way from Wild Card Weekend, it's gonna be the Saints.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just they are the team that has shown the most that they can go on a run, and they've done so. It's kind of crazy, and we'll move on to the next game in a second, but it's kind of crazy thinking about Teddy Bridgewater, how he came in and he not necessarily carried the team, but he took over and things did not stop for the Saints. They continued to play really, really well.
Yeah.
And it is just amazing to me that they were able to go undefeated with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. They were not able, they continued to play well, and that just goes to show how. And Alvin Kamara was out for I think a few games too. It's so amazing how the Saints team, as deep as it is able to overcome that kind of adversity over the season. So they're really it's something to be said about that. All right, and last but not least, the Seahawks and the Eagles in the 4:00 slate on Fox. This is a game of teams that are completely beat up, that have a lot of injuries across the board. It is amazing to see that. I mean that the Eagles were able to, with almost no wide receivers, with Zach Ertz going out probably for the rest of the year. It is amazing to see that this Eagles team is at its point, and a lot of it comes from Carson Wentz, which we'll cut to the offenses in a second. For the Seahawks, they had a lot higher expectations earlier in the year, especially after beating the Niners, and things have kind of gone downhill for them a little bit, but they are still competitive. They still have Russell Wilson playing out of his mind, and they are still a force to be reckoned with. What do you think about the offenses in this matchup?
So, like you said, a lot of beat up. The Eagles have no receivers. I think Greg Ward is their number one right now.
Yeah.
They had the best tight end duo in football with Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, but now it's just Dallas Goedert. Yeah. Which you could do a lot worse in terms of backup tight ends. But with all the receivers gone, you really need both of them.
Absolutely.
And then their running game is Boston Scott and Miles Sanders. And it's really been more, despite Miles Sanders kind of being the quote-unquote one, Boston Scott has really started to take over. And then Carson Wentz, who has been playing really well despite circumstances, finally gets a chance to play in the playoffs and not watch Nick Foles do it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And then on Seattle's side, you have Russell Wilson, who at one point was probably the MVP frontrunner at the start of the season until Lamar Jackson happened, who also hasn't played as well as he could. You have a pretty good receiving core in Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, David Moore every once in a while. But running back, you lost Rashad Penny, who was your backup earlier in the year, and then you lose Chris Carson and your other backup to injury in Week 16, and it looks bleak.
Mm-hmm.
Bleak is the best word I can describe that, because Carson was playing extremely well this season, and now is just out with injury. So they bring back beast mode Marshawn Lynch to kind of help them out. We'll see what kind of impact that has in the postseason. At least he has some chemistry with Wilson, but it's definitely a different situation than the Seahawks were expecting.
And I think what's been able to kind of help them at least a little bit. The Seahawks defense has done relatively well this year. They're not playing out of their minds, but David Clowney was a great addition for them. And when he's been on the field, he's been able to get the job done. So, I think that the pass rush is there. It could definitely play a huge impact. But they've also had games where they've given up a lot of points, and so there is some concern still standing, I think, for me on the Seahawks defensively, because I think that they have not completely shut down teams yet, and and anything could happen where I think that they might fall apart in a shootout situation. That's where I feel like there would be concerns. And on the other side of it, though, the Eagles defense has been another saving grace for them. While their secondary has not been good and has not been good for a little while, it's what has saved them is the pass rush and it is the run defense. They are able to they have a bunch of guys up front that haven't really been able to stop progress as much as they can. But will that be enough to stop Russell Wilson? And we've seen this matchup before. We saw it in a few weeks ago. I think it was week 11 or something along those lines.
Something like that.
And the Seahawks took the Eagles down pretty handily, actually. So will the Eagles be able to take what they've learned from that matchup and kind of carry it over into this one? That's a big question here.
So, fun fact, Pete Carroll has never lost to the Eagles.
Really? Interesting.
5-0 since 2010, since he took over.
Yeah, and I remember
as Seahawks coach.
That Super Bowl run that they went on. One of their losses that they had was to the Seahawks in the last few weeks of the season. So
yep.
Yeah, it's that That's an interesting thing, something to keep in mind.
That doesn't affect my decision,
Of
but
course.
I'm still going to pick the Seahawks.
Okay.
Just because I really trust Russell Wilson, despite the team's injuries, and I trust the Seahawks defense to take care of the very injury riddled Eagles offense.
Yeah.
It was kind of like with the number 5 seed. It was kind of like a consolation almost. Like it's okay. You didn't get the 1 seed or the bye, but you still get to face the NFC East.
Right.
And that's kind of how I felt about this matchup for a while, and I still do.
Yeah, the Eagles have been on a win streak, but that was against the NFC East. So I just think the Seahawks, they've played so well, competitively with the Niners, and I know the Niners just are generally always in close games, but with the exception against the Packers, we'll talk about that next week, I'm sure. But I am just of the mindset that the Seahawks they're more healthy than the Eagles are, and I just think that they know what it takes in this game to really get through it, and I think that they've done it before earlier in the year. I think they'll do it again now. I think it'll be close. I think that the Eagles they're going to be competitive, and Carson Wentz has put this team on his back, and I think he'll keep things in the mix. But I think the Seahawks ultimately, I put too much trust in them to not pick them here, so I'm going to go with them as well.
Okay, so we're stout on our NFC, and then we are very different on our AFC.
Yes. You have faith in the AFC South. I have my faith in the AFC East. That's just that's how it goes.
There you go.
On that, but I think it is going to be a amazing run. I am very excited to see how the playoffs end up unfolding. And
do you want to do our quick?
I was gonna say before we go, let's do we're gonna do just our quick. What do you think? With our picks, how we think the rest of the playoffs are going to play out? You go first.
Okay, so with mine, the matchups would be Baltimore, Tennessee, Kansas City, Houston, New Orleans, Green Bay, and San Francisco, Seattle. Out of that, my victors are Baltimore, Kansas City, New Orleans, and San Francisco.
Okay. And what about championship?
So that would mean a championship of Baltimore and Kansas City and New Orleans and San Francisco. And I'm going to go Baltimore, New Orleans.
Okay.
As the winners with the Super Bowl, with Baltimore taking over and defeating New Orleans in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
I am so high on the Ravens this year.
Of course, yeah. I look at this. I think we're on as much different as the wild card went. I do have a prediction that's very similar to yours. I think the winners are going to be the same out of the divisional round. I did pick the Ravens over the Bills, and it'll change next week if it comes to this. But I will pick right now the Chiefs over the Patriots, and then the Saints over the Packers, and then Niners over the Seahawks.
Yep.
And then championship game, I also agree. I think the Ravens and Saints would win those respective games. But in the Super Bowl, I do think that as good as the Ravens are, I think that the Saints and Drew Brees, he gets one last ring to put on his Hall of Fame resume. I think we said like pretty much the same things in our Week 10. Yes, we did.
Yeah.
You know what? It's okay. We're now able to spell it out even more because now we know the playoff matchups.
Yep.
So Saints, I think will take care of business, and that would be the first wild card team to win. I want to say since
the Giants.
No, I think the Ravens in 2012, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
I will double check on that, but I believe so.
You might be right.
Either that or it's going to be you're probably right. It's probably the Giants, but give me 1 second. I'm going to double check it. The Ravens played on Wild Card Weekend. So
okay, but they weren't a wild card team.
Neither of the Saints. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It'll be the first team that played in a wild card
weekend. The Giants were a true wild card.
Yes, that would be the first time since 2007, I want to say, because the Giants were division winners in 2011.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, the Packers. It was the Packers.
Oh yeah. Yep.
They were the
Bears
6th
won
seed.
that division that year.
Yeah. Packers
Bad
were the
memories.
6th seed, and
Bad
then
memories.
Green Bay went on the run. Yeah, so
Yep.
there you go.
Sure
All right, we will be back next week with more with the divisional round, with more coaching change news, and yeah, that basically kind of covers all that, and maybe another. We'll go back to our fun segments. We'll pick from the crop of what we've done this season. All right, and with that being said, see you next week.
Good night and good ball. Virtual Ball Boys has been brought to you by Team Chaos Productions. Find us on Twitter at Virtual Ball Boys and find more of our work at Team Chaos Pods.